now, live from the sun.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CES Esports panel. Everybody, give it a hand. Then there we go. Tripping over our words. Can you see everybody and everything like that? Awesome, thank you. My name is Zaid Tabani. I do video and stuff here at iBUYPOWER, and I'll be moderating this discussion. We have a panel of really smart, enterprising, like big names in collegiate esports. So I just want to really quickly go through and introduce them all. So right here we have Michael Brooks from the National Association of Collegiate Esports. Welcome, Michael. We have Duran Parsi from Collegiate Starleague, CSL. We have Mark Deppe from the University of California, Irvine, UCI. And we have AJ Dimick from the University of Utah. And Arabian Prince from N.W.A, which is pretty dope. So real quickly, I just want to start off with basically a general question for all of you guys. So how do you feel, look, colleges are adopting esports at a more rapid rate, and we all know that, even in traditional sports, there are benefits to students in different ways they live their lives and different ways they kind of address things. So overall, how do you feel, the esports programs benefit kids as opposed to, traditional sports programs do? I mean, what's the differentiation? What other skills are they getting, by entering these programs that they wouldn't normally get entering like a football program or something else like that? Just kind of an open question to whoever wants to kind of start off and jump in there. Yeah, sure.
I guess I'll start off. I think the most important thing, and I can say from personal experience since I founded the UCSD StarCraft Club when I was at school in 2008, and I can say 100% that was probably the best time and experience that I had at college, and that was kind of the impetus for CSL in general. I think like creating a home for people on campus who like to play games and like fostering a community that allows gamers to kind of come together and meet other people that play games is probably the most important thing that sort of collegiate esports provides, that not necessarily that traditional sports doesn't provide, because traditional sports I think can provide that. You can hang out with your friends, play basketball at the gym and things like that. But creating a gaming culture on campus allows gamers to also enjoy that type of community and connection with other students. And I think the reason that that's important is because there are more people that play games on campus that probably play every physical sport combined, just because everybody has a PC or laptop or console or phone. So gaming is much more accessible than other sports. And so I think it's really important for schools and universities to create a space that allows gamers to meet other gamers and to give programs to them, whether that be competitive ones or casual community-oriented ones.
Gotcha. Perfect. I think there's another aspect to this that we have gaming clubs on campus and the students, and they do all the things he said. They grow a community, and they have a place to hang out, and they find a like-minded people in ways they didn't have before. But there's a certain thing about institutionally supported esports, when the school adopts it and embraces it, not just tolerates it, but embraces it and puts the school colors and the school marks on them. When you're an anteater, that means something special, right? When you're a youth, that means something special. And so for these kids, there's part of the collegiate experience about being able to wear the school colors and be a representative of the school and the community, that these kids identify with the schools in simply ways they didn't before. And I think that's a real added value to the collegiate experience that they get.
And to add to what he just said, I think that will also justify the younger kids who are actually working their way to colleges and universities to say, look, Mom, Dad, I'm playing games because I want to go to this university. Right. And there's a program at this university now that supports esports and e-gaming. And look, there are jobs out there or careers in this. So I'm not just doing this for fun anymore. I'm doing this because I want to do this as a career, and I can make money doing this going forward. So I think on the collegiate level, as well as on the elementary school level or the high school level, it's going to trickle up into that, and it's going to change the dynamic of games in general.
Yeah, and I want to add that I think esports is so new and booming right now that there are a lot of opportunities for people in this space right now. There's only a few people that play on the stage, but the whole ecosystem around esports is so massive that there are lots of opportunities for shoutcasters, content creators, analysts, coaches, and I think the whole ecosystem's growing. So I think schools and students that are in it right now have more of an opportunity in esports. It is growing faster than traditional sports, which I think is peaking or has peaked. And so I think it's a great time to be in esports, and it's important for schools to be engaging with it and preparing students for the jobs that will exist when their students get there.
So I think the question was comparing esports at the collegiate level to traditional athletics, right?
Different. What different skill sets do you feel that esports brings to the table that that will differentiate it from or what other skills does it bring?
Well, I think everyone had some great comments there. I'd actually like to point out that what we're trying to do on our side of things is bring esports in a model that's similar to endorsement of traditional athletics, right? Like, I want things offered to students who maybe don't have an interest in traditional athletics, but do in gaming or streaming or shoutcasting, video engineering, sound engineering, but haven't gotten institutional opportunities because those programs never existed on the campus.
Right.
So path to graduation, scholarships, having staff that are employees of the institution to mentor, to educate, to train, getting student cafeterias provided to them, getting tutoring hours. Those are all the things that we're trying to build at the varsity level, which I think I should point out. That's basically the two levels at the collegiate point. Is you have the massive club space, right, where we want organization, we want participation, we want to see people have fun with people who want to do the same things, and then we have the varsity level where you are representing your institution, and we want the best and brightest we possibly can because we want to see our institution do as well as it possibly can against other institutions.
That's perfect. This actually is perfect. So, Michael, you're the executive director of NACE. Is it right if I call it NACE?
Yeah. Totally
Perfect.
fine.
Yeah. So, how did NACE get started? And can you tell us more about how many colleges you have under your wing right now and everything like that? And
Sure. So that is a rapidly growing number. And like as of maybe 8 months ago, it's just accelerating the number of schools that are starting varsity esport programs. Varsity is a little bit harder to find, but it's typically how you would think of a varsity football team or a basketball team in terms of the administrative support. Maybe not the number or dollar amount in terms of resources, but how the school from a philosophical standpoint and kind of from a resource perspective views their esports program. So the National Association of Collegiate Esports, we were formed back in 2016. At that point in time, there were only 7 schools that had varsity level esport programs. A very, very small number of schools, very, very new, and not a lot was occurring between institutions on understanding what is an esports program supposed to look like, what games are we playing in, how do we work with publishers, how do we view scholarships, what are the academic minimum requirements to be a varsity esports participant. Traditionally here in the U.S. for the last 120 years in the NCAA and 80 years in the N.W.A, it's been associations led by the institutions active in that space that have come together to figure out those core issues. These are institutional issues. And that was basically the crux of the formation of our association. Was there was nobody in there who had gathered together institutions to enable them, to give them a platform to make those type of decisions, to have active discourse with rulemaking ability and enforcement, all granted by the institutions, very much like the NCAA or the N.W.A and how they exist and how they're structured. And the decision made by those institutions was that we should do something here too, and that was the formation of NACE.
That's amazing, man. So also, I want to also shift to Duran. Duran, you and CSL, you guys have been around for a while. Since 09. How have you seen the landscape of esports and specifically collegiate esports change since 2009?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very exciting year for me since it is the 10-year anniversary of CSL, which I'm obviously very excited about. I think the biggest I think the biggest change really is, people like Mark and AJ and Michael, who have created more formalized institutions for students and providing them that varsity outlet. I know when I was an undergrad at UC San Diego, we won CSL, and there was no prize money at all back then when we won, so I got to just clap my hands for myself and my teammates. But at that time, I couldn't even convince the UCSD newspaper to write an article about us. they interviewed me, and then after a couple weeks, I followed up, and they said that their editor decided that this wasn't important enough to publish in the paper. So I think that's kind of one of the biggest changes, is that now obviously these things are not just in papers, but the universities themselves are providing scholarships to people playing. I think that's one of the biggest ones. The other one is on the club level and on the community side. Esports clubs on campuses are getting substantially more organized and substantially bigger. And not just that, the clubs for various different gaming communities are all uniting under one banner. So when I was in school, for example, we had UCSD StarCraft, and then 2 years later there was UCSD League of Legends, and now there's just one massive organization called Triton Gaming. And I think that goes a long way to showing how strong gaming is on campus now. Like, that club, for example, is the largest student organization in the entire university, right? And that gives them a lot more sway at the school to get support from the university to do events and to do, cool stuff. So I think those are probably the two biggest changes that I've seen over the past decade. And obviously getting publishers to officially support leagues and run their own leagues is another one.
That's incredibly important. Mark Deppe, you're the director of UCI Esports. In terms of integrating the program at a big school, UC, to push for it, what are some of the challenges and some of the benefits you've seen come from, the program itself? Just integrating it, getting people to kind of buy into it and everything like that. And what have you seen people get from it?
Well, anytime you work in an institutional environment, it is big, it is slow moving, resistant to change. They often they're built to last, right? And so when we kind of started pitching this idea in 2015, we had to find the right people to talk to who are willing to take risks, who are willing to do new innovative things. That happened to be student affairs on our campus. And so for us, it was to demonstrate their student interest. So like Duran was talking about, clubs and just kind of the student interest is really important. So we had to bring a kind of diverse group of students to meet with senior leaders and show that this thing was already happening, that they were totally unaware. The biggest club on campus, flying under the radar, was unrecognized, unsupported, and that big things were potentially available. We shared the Robert Morris success story, how Robert Morris had just started a collegiate program, and we just kind of threw out the idea of building some support for the gamers, whether it be a space or scholarships or coaching. And we just kind of explored. We started asking the questions. Could we find resources? Obviously, the student interest was there. Could we help find sponsors like iBUYPOWER to jump in and kind of take a leap of faith with us? And every time we had to come up with have a challenge or had a tough question to ask, we ended up came back with great results, great survey results. We found sponsorship dollars, and so it's kind of an iterative process. We built a business plan, people challenged it, and even today, even after we're launching our third year, we just started our third year, there are still challenges on campus. We're still having to kind of convince people that video games are a worthwhile, meaningful, engaging thing.
That was going to be, not to interrupt you, that was going to be my follow-up question. So were the numbers there and people were just like, these don't, it's a flash in the pan, right? Or were the numbers not there originally, and now that they are there, there's pushback now because it's so new and it's hard to integrate?
The numbers were always there.
Stigma, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, the stigma's been the real challenge. I would say the gamers historically are a silent majority on campus. They're a giant group of people who don't make a lot of noise. You don't know how to engage with them. So we did an unofficial survey when we built our program, and 72% of respondents said they identified as a gamer, and 89% said they were supportive of an esports program. We've had faculty since do real scientific surveys, and the numbers aren't quite that high, but they're significant. It's way more people than participate with just about anything. It's well over 50% of people play video games. We have 25% of the people who have come to the arena. 25% of our student body has been to our arena, which is really great. So the numbers are definitely there. The challenge is really the stigma. It is the lack of diversity, the lack of women in the space, the misogyny you find in video games, some of the negative stigmas around video games that we have to tackle. But our argument has always been, let's be a part of the conversation, let's be leaders, and we can help create change and create the change we want to see, as opposed to sitting on the sideline and judging it. So that's kind of how we've looked at it. It's been a challenge. It's still a challenge, but it's something that's fun to go to work each day and try to tackle.
Well, same question to you, AJ, especially because you're also from a big institution, University of Utah, right? What are some of the challenges you've had in implementing this program and trying to get people to kind of like, hop on board?
Well, the first thing is we benefited from the stories of what you guys did at UC Irvine and what Kurt Melcher did at Robert Morris, and so we had a couple of success stories to go along with it. What we did is we were the first Power 5 program in the country to elevate it to a varsity program, and there's a lot of pushback of questions that your admin needs answered. Is your donor base gonna like this, or if this is part of athletics, is it my donor dollars better not be going to Mario Kart type of questions, and so on and so forth. And everything that he said we need to get more women involved with this. But the other side of that is from our point of view, we had it two ways. Of one, we had the Crimson Gaming Club, which was a student organization which had already done it. They had coaches, they had competitive teams, they had 11 competitive teams competing. They had 600 students involved with it. They were highly visible on our campus. For an event the year before we had a varsity program, they rented out 3 floors of the law school and brought in 5 in-state schools for these huge events. And so they were highly visible. Conversely, we had an advantage over a lot of schools, which is a bunch of students begging their faculty advisor, begging whoever will listen to them for any amount of resources whatsoever. But we have a program at the University of Utah, the Entertainment Arts Engineering program, which is a big game development program where we have 600 students, 120 grad students, all invest in game development. And we've been the #1 ranked program 3 of the last 6 years. And so we had an advantage in that for 10 years now, we've already kind of broken down those barriers of showing what the gaming space can do for a campus and what investment.
Right. You had an example to point to, yeah.
And so we were a little bit unique in that we didn't just have that bottom-up grassroots effort to try to get it done. We also had top-down support because we'd already fought those battles. And so when this started coming along and the students, when UCI did it, when Robert Morris did it, we wanted to be next. And so put it together, cobbled together, help those students do it, help those students put it together. But it was embraced at the top levels. And so we hoped that by being the first big football school to get involved with it, that we would break down some of those barriers for other schools throughout the country and show that the water's warm, come on in, and that show them and make everyone aware. And it's everyone here will tell you over and over and over and over and over again, school admins do not know how big it already is on their campus today. Last year, they don't know, they never understand. It is an invisible audience. And so they need that institutional support. And I think it's two-sided, that when we talk about varsity sports varsity esports you want that institutional support and it serves those scholarship athletes, but it's also a two-sided thing of we don't want to usurp that community in our campus, the students that build that thing, of usurp their role and just say, thanks for doing that, we got this now. Varsity esports serves that community and complements it. We grow these facilities for them so they can have their events and hand it back to them. So I think it's all about that, of having the varsity program, having that top-down support and breaking down those barriers with that grassroots effort to be able to hand it to the students and say, this culture that you've created, come bring it at the university's house and let us help you out.
That's perfect, and I want to spin off of something you guys have both talked about being a silent majority, and I want to ask you, OG Arabian Prince. Of course, you were a founding member of N.W.A, right? And most famously, and I'm sure you see I asked Tony Hawk the same thing when I got to interview him a couple weeks ago, which was that I'm sure you were in not a sport but a medium that was historically looked upon as like, that's uncouth stuff. That's another flash in the pan kind of thing. And I'm sure you see similarities in that, even though it is insanely popular, even though it is at the forefront of things, even though the Billboard charts won't tell you what's top or what's not, what similarities in that do you see with collegiate esports? Do you see that similar vein kind of running through it?
Yeah, ultimately, it boils down to money. You know what I mean? Like, it boils down to, like, even with rap early on, people, that's nothing. It's just making noise. Nobody cares. But when it started to make money, then you got people to realize, I need to get involved. The big companies get involved. They want to be a part of it because it's a monetary thing. Same thing with collegiate sports. Like you said, everybody's involved in the school, but it's really hard to figure out how to generate money when you're doing this. And you have to figure out, and with you guys growing this on a college level and all of the universities getting involved, now it becomes important because you guys are a unity. It's a unity thing. And now you can figure out how to monetize this. And now the higher ups are going, oh, okay, they're making money now. We need to be involved in this and help it grow. But I also think that with the technology advancements that we have, like we talked about earlier with mobile, it's going to make it a lot more, popular and a lot more easier for the masses to get involved and easier for you not to have to worry about building large structures on campus and things like that as well. So I think that ultimately the similarity between rap and this is similar, but it's a money thing ultimately. How do you get the sponsors involved? How do you get more people excited to come out and pay to see these events as well? And that's going to help it grow even more.
Well, Michael, you also said earlier that you wanted it to be more like an institutional, like you wanted it to kind of be a similar model to institutional sports, right? And institutional sports came up at a time where, media was a lot different, right? They were event companies, right, showing entertainment for a while, and then they became broadcast companies and everything like that. You get them on TV and stuff. But now we have the internet where everything is immediately broadcast, right? Do you feel like that, of course, money is going to come in at some point, but monetization of these games, at a certain point, when it does hit like a big stage, right? Maybe this could be for all you guys. Do you feel that that's going to have the exact same model as like the NBA or even the NCAA, NCAA, not 3 A's, or the NFL, right? Is it going to have the same model, or do you think there's going to be differentiation in how, money comes into the esports system? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's funny. We all talk about the crazy growth of esports and how exciting it is to help more and more students, achieve the college dream, right? To help pay for tuition. We even have full ride scholarships. 7 months ago, I would have thought that would have been crazy, and now we're seeing it across the board.
Yeah.
But money, it's a serious issue at the association level. I mean, we're a nonprofit membership-owned association. That means one really good thing. It means we ask a lot of questions to understand what the heck's going on, and then we take that information, we share it with pretty much any other institution that wants to know what's going on. Partially, the reason for growth is the cost to start a program compared to really any other sport you can think of is minimal, right? For the number of students that can be impacted. That's a big plus for esports. The biggest unknown that we have, though, is how do you monetize this, actually bring in more revenue as opposed to, best case scenario, you break even from a financial perspective. That's a win case for us right now in most institutions is having a self-supporting program, and that's fairly rare at this point. In terms of similar models that we can look at and try to emulate, obviously, we look at the NCAA fairly closely. We look at the NAI fairly closely. We look at the NFL. We even look at NASCAR, right? NASCAR is a membership association, right? The International Speedway Corporation's actually the for-profit arm. I don't know how many people know that. I was shocked when I learned that. The key difference, though, and this is why so many administrators they might not get gaming, but they get business, and we're sitting here scratching our heads, is because in all of those, nobody actually owns the intellectual property to basketball, to football. Anyone could pick up a basketball, and anyone can film it and distribute that however they want, and that's fine. That is not the case at all in esports. There's one group missing right here, and that's the publisher, right? The groups who own the game, and that in the U.S., especially in most of the Western world, that gives them a tremendous say at the table in how is their property being marketed, how is it being used. And in traditional athletics, if we're looking at that business model, that is for institutions, that's a group we've never actually had to deal with in 120 years, is we've never had to ask anyone for permission other than the majority of our membership. And because of that, that's the biggest curveball when you're talking about massive monetization, which is typically, that comes from TV dollars, right? Media dollars. And we don't actually know who that belongs to at the end of the day. The most money coming from national championships, right? We have no idea what that looks like. We're working towards that, but that's a huge unknown for us.
And that's something that's going to have to be hashed out in the future and everything like that.
Yeah, if you want, the esports at the collegiate level to kind of move to the big show model, you got to figure that out. That has to be figured out long before you even start building that direction, because the sheer capital infrastructure you have to put in there to build up those type of events, it's massive, and you're not going to risk that without knowing for sure that you have at least the rights to run competition, to air competition for a set amount of period of time. Which is another problem in esports is, when we have PUBG or Fortnite, pop out of nowhere, that's great for gamers, right? I like Fortnite, I like PUBG, I like all those games. But for an administrator where you're trying to build a brand off of a game, to have a game disappear in popularity and a new game take its place, that's terrifying.
The rule set changes,
I will say this, though. I mean, talk about the long-term economic model of college esports and how you're going to make money on it. You're talking to three guys here that are participating in institutionally supported collegiate esports in one way or the other, but it's a particle. And what college esports is, most of it is still, it's a relationship between publishers themselves that run the collegiate programs and 5 guys in their dorm that signed up for a tournament. And that is what most of collegiate esports is. And for the long-term model, how you fix that is that has to change. And many more schools have to jump in as stakeholders in collegiate esports to help form what that structure is going to be and start getting those resources, negotiating for those resources to students. And that's the long game. And it's hard to see what that is going to be just yet. But when we're talking about self-sustaining collegiate esports, that's the bigged hole is many more schools on the administrative and institutional side jumping in and helping to create that structure.
Well, we sent you guys some of these questions, but one of the questions I was going to actually ask Duran about, but it could again be for all of you, because just especially the NCAA has been brought up a couple times here, right? And that organization itself does a lot of good, but also has a lot of controversy around it, right? But everybody in this circle specifically seems very pro the student here more so, and giving value to students, which I think is very different than a lot of other programs, which are like, well, we're going to get the broadcast rights and it's good for the school, right? But there seems to be a really good groundswell about trying to help students throughout their lives and everything like that, and give them skills demonstrably to use in the future. What do you think are some of the things that programs need to do to differentiate from some of the darker aspects of the NCAA, and what are the stuff that like NACE and CSL are doing in order to make sure that happens?
Yeah, I think the biggest controversy surrounding the NCAA is obviously that, they're basically monetizing off of using the likeness and images of the students without paying students, and without giving students their fair share, not just on a monetary level, but in terms of
branding,
food and branding and all the sorts of other different things. So I think from at least the CSL perspective, obviously we're not like NACE in terms of we're not restricted to varsity programs. Like, we on our side don't make a distinction between the official program at University of Utah and 5 guys at University of Utah in a dorm room that want to sign up and make a team. So on our end, our main goal is to be as open as possible to as many students as possible, so that we do recognize that publishers like Riot, they host an official league, and that's for, a lot of the official programs are playing in that. But we also know that there's this gigantic community of gamers at school that maybe aren't on the official team, but we want to give them an opportunity to compete and to possibly earn prize money or scholarship money as well. Everything that we do is, again, directed back at students. We want to make sure that students feel that there's a valuable thing that they're getting out of the collegiate gaming experience, whether it be through the monetary side from winning CSL, or just from the community side, like, hey, I'm just practicing with these guys on a weekly basis and making friendships and driving down to the lands together and building that type of connection, because that goes a long way to having positive impact on someone's life. But then as well, we want to provide a structure, and I think that's one of the things we do very well, is that we've, for 10 years, had a very consistent structure. So you can say, for an official program like Robert Morris, for example, or Utah or UC Irvine, maybe if there's not a publisher-supported league, like we run a CSGO league, and as a school and as an administration, you know, every single September 1 registration opens, every single October 10th the season begins. Like we provide a pretty consistent structure year over year that I would like to think is something that's beneficial to universities who are looking to find ways to provide something for their students to do and to provide an outlet for the students that are part of their programs to compete in. And again, from our side, it's really just about giving things directly to students. You know,
Giving them value.
Value both in terms of money, because the other really quickly, the other important thing about esports that's different from traditional sports is that in traditional sports, there's a very clear path to becoming a professional player, and college is, in 99% of cases, there's like the one guy who skips college and goes to Europe and then goes to the NBA. But like for 99.9% of players, if you want to become an NBA player, you have to play in high school, you have to get recruited by college, you have to play in college within that structure. In esports, if I don't find a deal suitable for me in college, I can just stream at home and get picked up by a pro team and make way more money. So I think we as organizations running, whether it be competitions or programs for college students, we have to be very aware of that and find out like what is important for the players and provide them that value. Otherwise, they'll go seek the opportunities elsewhere, I think.
I mean, did anything you want to add to that, or?
Sure, I'll say Duran mentioned a good point about consistency, and I think that's something esports is definitely lacking, is knowing when the season's going to be. Give us a general time frame. Overwatch started in the fall last year. Now it's starting in a few weeks. So we don't know when things are happening. And I could buy a ticket to the Final Four for next year maybe, but a hotel or flight right now. So I think consistency is something that institutionalizing and structure will add a lot of value for. I think when we talk about some of the negative things, I think Duran talked a lot about like the exploitation of players for creating value for the university or creating value for other people who get to make that in giant salaries or whatever,
right? And
that's not passed on to players. And I think esports has an opportunity to get that more right than other people have. We have a radical view of, you know what, if a student earns it, if they've achieved some tournament win, they get to actually keep the peripherals and the prize money. And so that's definitely still a topic up for discussion and debate amongst a lot of people. But I think public opinion in traditional athletics definitely is leaning towards, hey, look, these basketball and football players, they're putting a lot on the line. They're making a lot of sacrifices. They're taking a lot of time not studying and not investing in their career in academia to play and train for these sports. And the resources aren't going to the people who are spending or taking the greatest risk, right? So I'm hoping esports does that a little bit better. And I think the forced amateurism is something that I think the NCAA is going to come more towards esports where it is right now than vice versa with esports becoming more amateur. But
right.
Anyways, that's what I just want to share.
Yeah, so amateurism is something that we're actively looking at right now. So when we first started, the question, we had representatives from the NCAA, from the NEI there. We had schools from both associations there. Both NEI and the NCAA have obviously a traditional viewpoint on amateurism, right? You cannot be awarded beyond the full cost of tuition for your athletic skill or ability, period, right? It's a hard red line. Esports, for a lot of different reasons, is way out of bounds of that, right? You can have a streaming channel, you can have a screen name or a username, you could be anonymous. How do we enforce that, even if we wanted to, right? And that's a big if.
Yeah.
So right now, the way we leave it up to, and there'll be more discussion at our convention around this, is we leave it up to each individual institution to figure out the right policy, but they have to set that policy, and that policy has to go throughout the entire academic year. You can't change it on a person once they've already committed, right? So at least, everything's the same as soon as you agree, and then once the off-season occurs, things can change. That's the viewpoint as it is right now. But yeah, on amateurs, that's a huge issue. There's actually a lot of issues where we talk about why is something a rule within traditional athletics. The answer, more often than not, even in the legal answers with the NCAA in court, it's tradition, right? Well, esports has this wonderful opportunity now to where we can almost, from a rule settings perspective, cherry pick the things that work and then reevaluate things that are questionable today, things that maybe don't work today or don't work as smoothly, as cleanly as they should. And we have a chance, without the burden of tradition, to redefine that.
Reevaluate the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's something athletics, you just can't. It's such a large system with so many people who've been in there for many, many decades. That's the world they know. That's the world they're familiar with. That's the world they came up in. You see that especially in football, right? So much tradition. Even hiring, right? It's called, it's like your pedigree, right? You're an assistant coach under who's your head coach, right? Who is that person's head coach? It's such an industry built upon tradition that you just can't shake that, right? Institutions will fall before that tradition really gets shaken. That's why we see so much defense of the existing business model in court. But yeah, esports, entirely a new opportunity, especially because not all of our programs are under athletics, to redefine what makes sense.
And change things up. So what was mentioned earlier was like the way that the games change very quickly, right? Adding a new game in and switching a new game out, right? Because games, like, technology is moving so rapidly, right? New games come out, like, it feels like it. Well, pretty much every week. We've got an industry that is, most AAA games and most competitive gaming has come a long way, right? So, for example, Smash Brothers Ultimate came out, and that has grown exponentially, right? And maybe in a couple weeks, another fighting game come out and it'll go down. So usually in terms of deciding what's a good way you feel that comes into, that's me and on a phone. What's a good way for you guys, do you feel, to decide what games should be played professionally, right? And what games, I'll give you an example. I came from a music school, and there are people who play different instruments and everything like that, and they get to go and get scholarships for those different instruments, right? And there are like 4 people who played the tuba. There are 4, right? So in terms of like specialty games and integrating those students into these scholarship programs and everything like that, how do you feel, what do you feel is the best way to choose that, for not only the growth of the sport, but for the students' benefit in general?
Well, I'll talk about how we choose which games we play. So first of all, I want to talk about the 2 forces I see in esports that really matter. One is the community. The community selects the games. If Smash Ultimate comes out and they want to play it, Smash Ultimate is now relevant. If Smash Ultimate would have come out and nobody played it, we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
Right.
So the community elevates a game to an esport status where there's enough entertainment, enough interest, where schools and publishers should think about creating structure. And the other force is the developers. We've talked about them, the publishers today, and they're the ones that are in charge of running it once it's been elevated. So I want to mention that because I think you have to, one, have the community bought in, and the developers have to be an active participant. We play college League of Legends, college Overwatch. We don't play Hearthstone, so rules that apply to Hearthstone have no implication to UCI esports right now. And so when we think about which games to play, we find games that are relevant, that our students care about, that the public in general cares about, that we think there will be eyeballs on. We want to play in colleges, so we want to play where there has to be a college league, right? So if CSL has a league, we can play against other colleges. If Riot or Blizzard throw a league, we can play against other colleges. You have to have active developer support. But it's really up to your students. It's up to the publishers. And once you kind of commit to a game, you're kind of in it for several years because you're trying to build a relationship with students. And so I think it is a huge issue about how games evolve and change. We added Overwatch our second year, and we haven't added a game this year because it's just unpredictable where it's going to go. But Fortnite's interesting. PUBG's interesting. Smash Ultimate's interesting. I'm a Magic the Gathering fan. I think MTG Arena is interesting.
Yeah.
So I think you have to be very careful. You have to give people a long timeline. And I think the people on this couch, I think, will have a lot to say about what games evolve. But for me, those are the factors that we go into.
And I also think it's about balance of power. So we keep talking about the publishers having a lot of control and power over what happens with their game when it's being played. And I think there has to be some fairness to where the colleges get a lot more power and the publisher is just an active participant. Meaning that what if that Dota or Fortnite or something isn't popular in a couple years, and then the publisher decides, okay, you guys aren't playing my game this year, we're out. We don't want to deal with it anymore. So there's got to be some structure, and I know you guys are putting together those organizations to do that. But like we talked about earlier, it flows like water. It changes daily. And like I said, whatever's the most popular thing is going to rise to the top, and that's going to be the game that most people want to see and play. But, like we talked about the publishers, there's got to be some kind of...
Marvel vs. Capcom just had this happen.
Yes.
They had this Dragon Ball, and there are two. I come from the fighting game world. Dragon Ball Fighters and Marvel vs. Capcom both had this happen. Marvel pulled support, so it wasn't shown at EVO, and then Dragon Ball Fighters just got pulled from 2 tournaments because of one of the publishers in Japan. And that is an enormous game right now. Sonic Fox 1. So that's
so there has to be some way where there's a negotiation where you go, you can't pull out because you agreed to this. Like, you can't just be, we're here and whatever we say goes. It's got to be both ways. Everybody, it's got to be some fair play.
I think that's absolutely right. And like Mark said, you have to deal with the components of what games you choose based on what is big on your campus versus is there a collegiate scene. So even if it is big on your campus, you got to have somebody to play. So it has to be a collegiate scene for it. There's also the idea that of the fluidity of these games, that they will have lifespans, they will come and go, and other things will come, that it's important to have your hand in more than one cookie jar here, and you have to have a modular setup so that if you're all in on League, and then 10 years from now another MOBA comes along and gets in on that you have a structure set up where Collegiate Esports doesn't die because that IP something happened to it. So you have to have a modular setup where you are invested in multiple games and multiple publishers in multiple ways, so that you have the infrastructure of you can swap games in and out for one game for another, so that you can serve. But simultaneously, and this is what colleges get wrong, colleges hear the word esports and they treat it like a monolith, like it's one community, one thing,
right?
Gamers, and so and don't understand that my Overwatch players and fans might not care when League of Legends is on. It's also a problem of we didn't introduce just one thing to the University of Utah. We introduced 4 different teams, and so there has to be a way to serve the different segments on your campus of those different communities. So schools be well advised that you have to have a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit elsewhere, so that you can change with the ebb and flow of the community, and also so that you're offering something to everyone on your campus that is interested in this space.
Do you think there's going to be one unifying game that unifies everybody, or do you think it's going to be multiple games that kind of come up and break through? I mean, a lot of people are saying Fortnite is going to be this game that brings everybody together. Overwatch League looks promising. CSGO has just been consistent, right? Do you think that which do you think is going to break first?
Well, I want to first say I think it's weird to lump them all into esports, like AJ said. Like, talking about esports is really talking about a bunch of individual games,
right?
And
communities, like you were saying,
like AJ mentioned. I think it's misleading to say esports and to treat it all the same. Like I said, we play 2 games. Like, other games, they don't interact with me daily, and so I think. And we talked about a lot about developers, and I think if you're going to choose a game, you're also choosing that developer, and you're trusting them, right? You're trusting them to create structure. You're trusting them to create longevity. And so I don't know if there's going to be a unifying game, but you need the developer. You need to believe that the games that you're supporting, that you're choosing to play, that they're going to be around a while. Like, it was a huge deal a few weeks ago or last week. Here's the Storm. Dropped out of competitive play, and I'm really lucky we didn't have a scholarship team for that, because what happens when you have a scholarship team and the league's about to go away, esports is dying. So I think the developers need to know that we need longevity, we need trust, and they need to give us a long runway when they're thinking about changing games, because they're going to really frustrate the community, they're going to frustrate universities.
Right.
But I actually don't have a problem like empowering the developers to run it and work it and do their own thing. I think, you're an IP holder too. How would you feel if someone just took your music and is like, no, we own that now, right?
But if somebody took my music if somebody took my music, like,
we need the microphones.
Perfect example. I'm not trying to put anything out there. So I did the song Supersonic, right? Big hit. And Will.i.am turned it into Fergalicious. He made me a lot of money. Yeah. I don't mind him using
sampling,
it. Right, by sampling it. But
you had to give him permission.
I had to give him permission. Yes. And that's what I mean. There should be some type of contract. They can't just drop out and go, okay, You made us mad or whatever. There has to be some
Right.
type of contract where, like you said, you cannot, for 3 years, we have this. And if you decide after the 3 years we renegotiate, if you guys decide to go another way, fine. But this is one thing we haven't even talked about. This is so new. This whole thing is so new. And I think ultimately it may be a situation where you can't look at other models. You have to create this new thing and a new model that doesn't resemble anything else in order for it to survive and work, with multiple games and multiple communities and multiple schools. And that's something that has to be discussed by the masses, you guys and the communities and everything else. It's a long road ahead, but yeah.
I didn't mean to take the mic away, but so you're right. Why are institutions organizing? Well, to a point, institutions were tired of their name getting out there. They're tired of students getting, because esports is getting so popular. We're organizing their own dorm, but then, they're using the athletic logo, right? These are multi-million-dollar brands that are being taken by students, and for administrators, what are they doing? Video games? What?
Gotcha,
it's so unknown what esports was back then, and it still is today. And so one of the things that, or two of the things we look at as an association is, right, what was that point of critical mass, right? When we have enough member institutions, our scale's big enough to where we really have a hand on that driving wheel of where should esports go on our own campuses, right, across the entire country, and for us, both the U.S. and Canada. The second component is, it was students who were organizing gaming, and that's great. But when you have a group of students who are trying to work with multi-billion-dollar corporations, these are the publishers, well, that's not a balanced negotiation at all. It's really just the developer telling you how it is. On our side, we think that's not the right structure or strategy for long-term growth. And long-term growth for us is important because that's where all the value is really at the end of the day, right? When we're talking about generational success.
Right.
And for us, for me, when I look at it, that's when we need institutions involved, because institutions are going to be there with or without esports, right? Just like athletics, right? Yeah, athletics is huge for an institution, for a college and university. If athletics disappears, guess what? That college and university is still going to be there. Still massive institutions, still with their own licensing departments, their own legal departments, right? So that's when we really start bringing people who are of kind of an equal caliber in scale and mass into the conversation and really figure this thing out so that it's not changing week to week or semester to semester, year to year, based upon whatever KPI a publisher, a media company, an event organizer is looking at. But we have long-term agreements. And, I work with developers every single day, just sharing what we're doing, getting their feedback and trying to give a perspective. We actually look at a 4-year time horizon, right? The idea is if you bring a freshman in, you want them to graduate while still having the opportunity to compete in the same game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's absolutely a balancing act around that table.
I want to ask so many more questions, but I do also want to open it up so the audience can ask some questions and everything like that. And if we have some audience questions, we'll get to those. But just real quickly, to just kind of like wrap up a basic thing before we ask the audience for any questions. I had written down here, what do you think the best way for a student to get into collegiate esports is? I feel like you guys have answered that. It's play the games and it's work hard. But what do you think is the best way to contribute? To contribute to this, because you said yourself and multiple of you have said there's so many different jobs for this. There's casting, there's video, right? There's marketing, right? AJ used to be a developer for a game for disabled people and for health, and you got into this as well. So from your own experiences and everything, what do you think is the best way for people to just go around the room and say, what's the best way you feel you can contribute and get involved with the growth of this whole thing from a collegiate level?
Yeah, I think just getting involved. I mean, I can even just speaking from the CSL perspective, obviously we run leagues for right now like 8 or 9 different games. We broadcast 5 days a week plus a talk show that's coming in the spring. So, we need casters for every game. We need writers for every game because we cover our league pretty comprehensively with news articles and things like that. We need tournament administrators because we have, hundreds and hundreds of League of Legends teams and Fortnite teams and CSGO teams and stuff. So we every summer open up, recruitment basically for staff positions, and that's a super easy way to get involved. There are quite a few people that are pretty big in esports right now that started with CSL. Frodan, who's probably the most popular Hearthstone caster, started casting CSL games. Kevin Knock, who's like the VP of Biz Dev for Rect right now, started casting CSL. So I know CSL in particular can offer a lot of those opportunities, but now a lot of the schools themselves have their own casting, their own content department. So there are tons of ways outside of competing. And even at the club level too, the clubs have all of these positions as well. And now a lot of schools are having coaches. So yeah, you might not be the best CSGO player, but you have a really analytical mind. You can apply that and be a coach for a team. So I would say find who the relevant stakeholder is. So if you want to get involved, determine whatever your skill set is or your interest is. Like, I really want to write. Okay, well, contact the esports club at your school. Can I write for you? Contact the esports varsity program. Oh, do you want coverage for your team? Or contact an organization like CSL. Oh, can I cover the league?
Be proactive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Because there are innumerable opportunities for people that want to get involved, basically. And I would say, at least from our side, all of our positions are paid too. As someone who did like unpaid free volunteer work in esports for many years, my number one goal was like, as soon as I can afford to pay everyone will get paid. So, and I would assume most other positions at varsity programs and stuff are all at least paid or given credit or something like that. So I would say seek the opportunities out, determine what your skill set is, and then just reach out to as many organizations or people or schools or clubs as possible, because everyone wants the work to get done. Lovely.
Yeah, and for me, it's about education. So maybe we might have talked about it offline. I'm building technology centers to give back, and you spoke about diversity, giving back to diversity and women in tech on the elementary school and high school levels. So giving them the knowledge to know that, okay, you love games. 'Cause I hear from the parents, and the parents always say, oh, my kid, all he wants to do is play video games. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to do anything else. Well, there are game testers making like $150,000 a year testing video games. Go get him a video game job, or let him explore other things. There's so many things, like you mentioned, that you can do in video games or in esports or all of these things. So what we're trying to do is educate the kids that are coming up that, okay, you may not have thought about going to college or university, but guess what? You can go and play games and be involved in the gaming industry and do these things. So I'm just trying to educate and give back that way so that they can understand that there's a career going forward. And,
right.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I've always focused on the varsity level because that's really the only area that I know of in any detail. But so talking about diversity, right? We got a big problem in that we have a lot of guys who sign up to play, who want to be considered play at the varsity level. Not a lot of women. So it's not even that men are being selected more often than women. It's just we have a problem with women putting their names forward for even consideration. However, that's on the competitive side. It's funny, we've got, and I talked to Twitch, I talked to a number of companies, when they look at employees they want to hire, the skill sets and employees they want, our schools aren't actually teaching, right? It's streaming, right? We're way behind the times of the skill sets you need as a comparable employee for like a consumer brand. Pick a category, automobiles, food, beverage, whatever it is.
Right.
Schools are way behind the times in teaching for those positions that employers are hiring for. So, we're working with like Twitch, for example, in this case, to help build out curriculum that our schools can do on certificate, majors, minor level, education platforms. But we're also creating scholarship positions for students who want to be the shoutcaster for a team's Overwatch, or an Overwatch team, or a League of Legends team, or whatever the game is at the institutional level. So there are a number of different positions beyond just being a player on the team that are being opened up, and resources are being provided. Because the schools, it's funny, the schools know they need these capabilities, but they don't have employees at the ready who know how to do it. So they're actually having to go and actually it's not, they're going out and finding people. People are approaching them and saying, hey, look at all the things I learned how to do on my own. Don't you wish I could do this for you?
Yeah.
And then make that happen for me, right? And it's incredible to see that happen because it's all building value. That's in the entire board is what is the value that you bring to the table, and then who would be interested in that type of skill set. And once you connect those pieces, I mean, you'll find many administrators who you know how to do streaming, you know this Twitch thing, right? This YouTube, this Facebook Live, you know how to do that. Great, help me. It's incredible to see that type of outreach once a school identifies someone who's interested in doing it.
And I'll say the biggest way people can give back, from my perspective, is just kind of help elevate the ecosystem, right? Like, we talked about all the roles that you can do, and you can interact with esports however you want, but we really do need to make esports something we're proud of. I mean, it's got a lot of issues, just like society has a lot of issues, same dirty issues that society has, but I think now that the spotlight's on it, it can't be, our criteria for hiring someone can't just be, oh, they're a gamer, they're part of this cult, this community. It's really got to be, you have the skill set. We welcome people from across the spectrum of identities, and it's really something that welcomes everybody. So I think what I would like to see other people do is create a space that we're proud of. Esports is going to grow, and if it's going to really thrive, it's got to be something that we're proud of at the end of the day. So we're fighting hard for it, but to make it easier to fight for and advocate for, esports has to be something that when you shine a bright light on it, it really sparkles and shines, and something that universities, institutions, and parents and students can really get behind.
Well, I would say, I mean, we've talked a lot about how students need institutional support around these things and what the kids need, but more than anything, and why schools jumping into this, the universities and colleges need the kids, and they need their energy, and they need their passion for it. And so be aware that you are providing a service for your university when you organize an event, and when you go get a room in the library and everyone brings their awesome iBUYPOWER rig in there for a nice LAN party. That universities need the energy, need the passion of these collegiate students, and mainstream sports has peaked. And this is where a lot of the energy is. And you are doing an absolute service for your institution when you create a community and find the like-minded people on your campus and invest into this. And esports at the University of Utah was not created by admin. It was created by Crimson Gaming, by that student-driven club that became so visible on our campus that they couldn't be ignored anymore, and by the student organizers who created an absolute force to be reckoned with on the campus that demanded attention for it, clear up to we were able to elevate it to a varsity sport. And so those types of things of find your community, find where you want to hold events, find the like-minded people on your campus, because the campus needs your energy and needs your investment back into it as much as the other way around.
Awesome. Do we have time for Q&A? Or I think we're out of time right now. Real quickly, I just want to thank everybody on this panel for giving some amazing insight. Can we give them all a hand real quickly? Thank you so much. One last question for Arabian Prince. Can you talk about the intersection of hip hop and esports with artists like Lupe Fiasco, Drake, and Logic embracing gaming and esports?
Oh, wow. So we talked about this offline. It's a huge thing right now. I mean, we all saw the numbers with, was it Drake and Ninja? I mean, that just blew off the handle, and I heard they're fighting now. They're having like a love spat or something. But anyway, it's a bigger thing because I say to people say, whoa, you celebrities or you entertainers are really good at gaming. I'm like, we got a lot of time on our hands. A lot of time on our hands. You know, when you're backstage or wherever you are, you're playing games. And we look up to these esports stars just like you would look up to somebody like Odell Beckham Jr. You know, like I'm watching the streaming and I'm watching this stuff at home, and people are like, why are you doing this? I'm like, because I'm trying to get better.
Yeah.
You know, I used to be a Quake pro back in the day. I actually still play Quake Live to this day. Every day I play Quake Live still to this day. You know, we won't talk about that one. We won't talk about Quake Champions. But anyway, it's a thing that, you know, we want to get better. And that's the key right now is these celebrities are really taking this thing very seriously right now. And yeah.
And it's important. It's visibility. But anyway, I really want to thank everybody. I want to thank Duran. I want to thank OG Arabian Prince. I want to thank Michael. I want to thank Mark Deppe. I want to thank AJ. And I want to thank y'all for being here and listening to it. My name's Zaid. Thank you guys so much for attending.